Well, welcome everyone. Thanks very much for putting this on for us, Forrest. People get miss a bit or whatever. Forrest is recording this. We want to talk tonight about Section 83 of the Health and Safety at Work Act. Now, this is sorry, I'm getting, oh yeah, can you deal with that? Kissie's just sent his email address at the bottom. You got it, Forrest? Okay, cool, very good. Okay, so now as a lot of the people on the call will know, the thing is that I'm just wondering if I can put that. Can you put that the questions and that away for a bit, because they're kind of distracting to me. I keep worrying about people. Cool, very good. Okay, so a few of the people actually on the call tonight are actioning Section 83. Now, Section 83 is a part of the Health and Safety at Work Act, which actually flips the switch on the employer. And the whole situation actually, because most of you will have heard, and of course this has been, I've been pursuing this strategy for at least 3 months now, but a lot of you will have heard that the case that Sue Gray was taking for, I think it was 4 pilots or something like that, the airport workers anyway, had met with no success yesterday. And the really interesting part about that was, for me, I heard it late at night, about 10 o'clock, I was just getting on the boat to go back to Auckland. The really interesting part about that was that apparently the comments, I talked to Calvin Alp, he was down there covering it, and I said, oh, I've just heard this, and now I believe Section 83 really needs to kick into gear. And he said, yeah, he said the main point of the argument was that the judge believed that COVID-19 was a very new virus, and it was a new vaccine that was treating it, and it was absolutely essential that was the way to, basically echoing the Prime Minister's elimination strategy. So sort of going back, even back a step from what she'd been talking about recently, which seemed to be linked to wanting to save everybody from sort of something to do with the borders and the traffic light systems, and if everybody had it, then that would make the traffic lights work in the correct manner. So it didn't even seem to be linked to any sort of disease the way she was approaching it. However, the judge then went back to her idea of the elimination strategy and said, well, you know, it's a new virus and a new vax, and every time we get a new one, we're going to have to new. Well, he didn't say that, but that would be the logical thing. So what Section 83 says is, and it'll be very heartening to all of these people who are terrified of this deadly pathogen. There's that, yeah, okay, we agree. Now you might be thinking, well, how do we win with being agreeable? Well, under the Health and Safety at Work Act 2015, any hazard in the workplace is the responsibility of the PCBU. That can be the employer, it can be the contractor you're contracting to, you're subcontracting to, it can be a place where you are going for entertainment. It can be all sorts of places, right? Places that you might just, you know, where you're going shopping, where you're going to a restaurant, etc. Those are all workplaces that are controlled by a PCBU. So under, if we go back to this supposition that the deadly pathogen called COVID-19 is in all of these workplaces, because we seem to have a lot of evidence that it is. There are a lot of people walking around with masks on and shutting people out or keeping people in or doing all sorts of things, right? So we suppose that with Section 83, you're going to have to suspend your disbelief and play the game, right? So how this actually helps us is that the PCBU has all the responsibility for controlling, testing, mitigating, eliminating, if possible, this deadly pathogen. Now, it's not us as workers or visitors or partakers of restaurant meals or shoppers that have to be tested. Although I am suggesting it would be a good idea, but with the new technology, it will be pretty painless, right? So Section 83, which you can get in a letter that will be provided for you. I have sent one to Forest, and people could get a sample of that, but each particular, well, not each particular workplace, but in the broad sense, workplaces have different sorts of characteristics. So, for example, if you're working in a hospital, it's one sort of workplace. And now, if you're working in the medical field, but you're working in a number of different, say you're visiting different homes to do your work in there, then you have a number of workplaces, okay? But they're all controlled by a PCBU. The other interesting thing about this control is it can be extended. So, for example, if your boss, if your PCBU is saying to you, well, you've got to get the vax to come into this workplace, but you have to go to another workplace to actually get that vax, say the doctor's surgery or the vaccination centre, or even stood on the side of the road, then that place becomes a workspace for you by implication, because it's a condition of entering one workplace to go to some other place for the business efficacy, if you like, of the business to actually get that vaccination, right? So the employers and the PCBUs have been, and the government's obviously been thinking that we perhaps wouldn't get this angle. Perhaps they didn't understand it in the first place, because the administrator of this act, the Health and Safety at Work Act, is a group called WorkSafe. They used to be OSH, and part of them used to be part of what was called the Department of Labour. The Department of Labour was originally, going back even further, was the factory inspectors. When we first started to get industrialisation, they were pretty dangerous places to work in. You know, they would cotton mills and, well, you know, down the mine, for example. Very, very dangerous places. So, so factory inspectors, and you know that it was the factory inspectors' work, and they would go in and see that there were no children working in these places, you know, because children used to be able to go down the mines. Women went down the mines. Children went down the mines. But in these places, the PCBU or the mine owner or whatever they make money out of that, right? So that's why a PCBU is called a person in charge of a business unit. Now, that obligation, if you like, to have a safe workplace also now extends to even to places that are not working for a profit. So all these NGOs, right, non-government organisations with, you know, who are supposed to be, you know, such, often they have businesses, Red Cross and what's it, the ambulance service example, they're all business. Businesses, right? And so they all make a profit, or they profit in some way or another from your work. If the only people who are not covered by the Health and Safety at Work Act are volunteers and prisoners doing work in the prison. So that tells you a bit about, you know, what rights you have, right, in terms of this. The only person who's excluded, the only people who are excluded are the prisoners in the prison doing prison work. And then, of course, volunteers, because you waive your right. Why a volunteer is excluded is when you go into a dangerous situation, you might, you're basically being paid to go into that situation, but you're not being paid to do it, if you like. But you are earning your living actually by you're selling your labour, right? And you have to do that because otherwise, you know, there's no bread on the table. So but a volunteer is deemed to be going in there just for some reason or other. Okay, it's not, they're not reliant on putting bread on the table with the work that they're doing there. So you're kind of you're kind of in a situation of because you are doing it out of necessity, rather than you're doing it for fun or, you know, for helping everybody or whatever, you're deemed to be covered by this work situation, because of course you can't leave it often without having a problem, whereas a volunteer can just say, no, I'm not doing that, thanks. Okay, and in Australia I think they've got the volunteers covered as well, but anyway, in here they don't. So what is Section 83? So I think if you like, we could before we go on to the technicalities of it, and here's one other thing I would like to say about it before we go on to that. Don't worry about the law, okay? I know the law, all you have to do when you understand about this is put your letter in, and sit back, pretty much, because you are not required to negotiate with them or anything like that, right? Okay. What we decided in the last Zoom I did about this was that a group of people would actually, if the employer did want to talk about it, then we would have a Zoom meeting, and they would all, because they all put their letters in separately, but they would all be on Zoom. I would be on Zoom, and the employers would be on Zoom. Right, so that's the sort of meeting that you have to have once you put your letter in. You do not return to the workplace, no matter what. Okay, right. Now, maybe people would like to ask a few questions, Boris, while I have a little sip of my drink, and people might like to ask some questions about that.
Fantastic. I think that's a great idea. So if you'd like to ask a question, just put your hands up. I'm just going to put it on a what we call a bigger screen of all the pictures so I can see, or even just unmute yourself if you want to ask a question, and then once you've asked a question, just please mute yourself again. You should be able to unmute yourselves. I don't think I've locked you down.
Can I ask something?
Go
Hi,
for
I'm
it.
Megan.
Megan,
Nice to meet you, Liz, and everyone else. I'm just wondering, so you're talking about this letter, so you're suggesting that so tomorrow, Thursday will be my last day because Friday's a public holiday and I won't be able to return to work on Monday. So provide that letter Thursday afternoon, and then I'm gone from work, so don't go back in until
the workplace is cleared to our satisfaction, because we're going to be keeping a monitoring role here, finding out, anything that the employers come back and say, oh well, we've got the equipment now, we've done the tests, we're okay, we want to see the results, for example. Okay. And of course, we're very interested to hear about that. So you're in a place that has a public holiday on Friday, are you?
Yes, I am. I work in public, but Monday to Friday position.
Okay, but are you in a region that's got a public holiday for some reason on Friday?
Canterbury has, Canterbury Day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, on Friday. Okay, cool.
Friday.
Yes, that would be correct. Yep. Nobody else?
I'm so sorry, can I also ask, so submit it by email so that there's a record of them receiving it?
Yes, definitely.
Right.
Good question.
And from my work email or from my personal email?
I'd use your work email.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Forrest and Liz. Just wondering, I just came in a bit late, so I missed the start of it. But if you have your own business and you're working as a nurse, would you be sending that letter to the MOH?
Yes, if they're providing you with any funding, yeah.
No, there's no funding involved.
Okay, how does that work? Because contractors are all covered. So where would you typically work?
It's my wife's business, but she's an appearance medicine nurse. So she has standing
Appearance
orders.
medicine, what's that?
Like Botox and collagen and.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So she has standing orders from a doctor for certain things like Botox and stuff like that. So that's been pulled on the 15th. But ultimately that is just someone giving standing orders for her to be able to do her job, but it's above them that are making the decision to pull it.
Right.
The nurses, or she's next to me now, so
It's the Ministry of Health.
The Ministry of Health, which I have no problem with. If I had the right documentation, I have no problem with rocking in there and doing whatever I need to do.
Well, the thing is that what we've got to try and flip our mind to is not just that we're going to recognise this deadly pathogen, but we've got to recognise we're talking workplaces now. We're not really talking roles. And there is another little explanation document that is quite useful to have. So when you get your letters, that can be supplied too. But this is a common thing that the PCBU comes up with. I don't know if you heard what a PCBU is. It's a person in charge of a business unit.
In the health and safety side.
Yeah. So what they typically get confused about is between the worker and the workplace. So they'll say things like, "But we haven't got any. We haven't got any COVID." Well, how do you know? You haven't even tested it. Right, or they'll say, we've been wiping the surfaces, you know, religiously, and yeah, but you haven't tested it, right? And we want it tested, right? And it's also so what we've got to look at in your situation is what is the workplace that the work is being carried out in?
Just like a clinical room.
A clinical room. And who actually, do you rent that from somebody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's your landlord who's the PCBU.
Okay.
Okay. Now, how does that, you know, I mean, I'm saying that quite straight out. How do you see that? How do you see that working out for you?
It's the challenge in her respect is having the standing orders. So in relation to what she's actually doing physically by injecting the stuff into the body, which her landlord, from a health and safety perspective, is not really involved in that.
No, well, they are from the point of view of the Health and Safety at Work Act. It's the actual place. It's not the people. It's not the people.
Yeah, but it doesn't. But she can say yes to that in that regard, but it doesn't give Fliss the opportunity.
Well, what we would be hoping, we would be hoping in that case was that the landlord, now, for example, if you had, say you were paying your rent or your lease yearly, and you had been shut out of using that space over this past whatever, that you've been shut out of using it, you could withdraw your rent for that time and say, well, I couldn't use it because you haven't actually, I haven't been able to use it because you've been following these orders, right? But your responsibility, landlord, is to provide a safe and healthy place for me to work. So, you know, I've got a case against you for rent already paid and a lease in the future, for example. What we're trying to do is get the PCBUs to put the pressure on the government. Instead of folding to the government, we want the landlord, or we want the the
landlord is her overseeing doctor, really, because in relation to her business, because she can do that anywhere.
Yeah.
It's probably a different situation, but I just thought, I know you're talking about the PCBU. It's almost like that. That is the MOH. That's the one that we need to be going to and saying.
Well, you can do both. You can do both.
Where's your health and safety plan to make this decision to say that we can't nurse as a contractor? What have you done around your risk assessment? She's a soul of the business.
Yeah, but the risk assessment, you've got to remember. Sorry, what was your name?
Corey. Sorry, it comes up iPad, but I don't know what does that.
Corey. Okay, Corey. What you've got to remember is forget your wife, and so I don't mean to say it like that, but forget the person in this picture and just focus on the workplace. Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about. I'll talk a bit more about what happens when you action a Section 83, and then you'll maybe get what I'm talking about, right? So the Section 83 says that you must provide. Well, before you get that stage, you've got the workplace, and it's the responsibility of the PCBU. They've got to provide a workplace that is free of hazards. Now, we're going from the point of view that the hazard is both, actually, the vaccination, because of the control that's extended over out from the PCBU, which in this case would be the Ministry of Health. Right, so you've got two PCBUs in your situation that you have to that you can latch onto. The more the merrier, Corey. The more the merrier, right? We want everybody to be shook up and understand this stuff, right? So you've got, and this is when I say people send their Section 83 letters in.
Sorry, Liz, someone unmuted themselves and I tried to mute them so they didn't interrupt, and unmuted you. So if you can unmute yourself, Liz, that would be fantastic. And if everyone else can just please mute themselves, that would be fantastic until the other person finishes speaking. And
Okay.
then you're welcome to ask the question.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Definitely can, Liz.
Okay.
No, you're muted again. No, you're still muted.
I've got it. Okay, so getting back to these workplaces, right? So I was explaining Section 30 of 30 or 31 of the Health and Safety at Work Act talks about, the control of the workplace, etc., right? It can be quite complex, however, you can ping them, that's for sure. So they're in control of the workplace. They've got to get rid of the deadly pathogen or whatever. And also they've got to think about now under Section 47 that they might have got themselves on the hook for damages that occur from the actual use of the vaccine on people, right? Which was a situation that they had tried extremely hard to get themselves out of. Okay, when you get the letter, you'll be able to understand it better, and we might have you might want to have a follow-up call. But the Section 83, which is what I'm saying, you actually have to focus on, is because that's what you have to take action on. Section 83 says that if you tell because you have to look after your own health and safety. If you tell an employer there's a hazard at the work that you need to leave that workspace from, they are then notified, right? They are also supposed to notify WorkSafe, but they haven't been doing such a thing because they haven't realised that they're supposed to, because WorkSafe have been leading them round by the nose. So they have to notify that there is this pathogen in the workspace and what they're going to do about it. So they're going to test this area, right? Now, once you've given them that letter, that means you stay away from that workspace. Now, there is under Section 83, I think it's subsection 4, yeah, I think it is. If they can offer you an alternative work, right, in a safe workspace, they can do that, and of course you must accept that. So what's happening with teachers is that they are offering work from home, right? Now, that means that your work is intact, right? You cannot be sacked. If they try and sack you after you've put that notice in, they have sacked you while you still have the job, and they have sacked you because you are not in a place that has been declared a hazard. Now, that is totally illegal, right? They cannot do that, and they haven't been trying to do it. Neither in the education sector, nor in the what you call it as the other one, nor in the medical, where people are working in places that are rest homes or something like that. They haven't tried that, because obviously their lawyers have said no, you can't do that. However, they have been trying to muck around with wages a bit. One situation is that they've tried to say, well, if you're not in, no work, no pay. That doesn't work, actually, and that will give rise to a claim, a personal grievance under the not the Health and Safety at Work Act, under the Protection of Wages Act 1983. Very, very serious, because it's not only that, but they are trying to coerce you or induce you into a dangerous situation, which the courts would very much be, frowned upon. So we don't have to go to that down that path yet.
Mania.
Possibly just a
Okay. Sorry, Liz. You are muted again. Someone jumped in. I tried to mute them before they...
Okay, cool. I'm back again. Right. So, yeah, there are a couple of situations there that have occurred, but the PGs haven't gone in yet. You've got 3 months to get those in. I believe that this is, it's actually catching on so quickly that it will become accepted pretty soon now, that especially when large groups of people put in their letters, that this is something they're going to have to take seriously. It's not just 1 or 2 people trying it on. It's a real challenge. Now, people say, well, what happens next? A lot of this, of course, well, all of it is unknown. This is the first time it's ever been done anywhere in the world. And but there is plenty of law where people have removed themselves from dangerous work situations, and the bosses have then stopped paying them or something, or they've docked their pay, etc. The worker always wins, because if you remove yourself out of a dangerous situation as a worker, you have all of the law in the world on your side. There is no way otherwise. If you were to be made to work in a dangerous or do work that wasn't even in your contract, for example, so when they then that would be deemed a slavery situation, right? If you were forced into those situations. So this is a kind of an anti-slavery section in the Health and Safety at Work Act. Even, I mean, if you were working in some place and they said, okay, well, you're a nurse, but you can go and mow the lawns because, that'll do. We'll get something out of you. Well, that would be not possible, because under the Act it says no, it's got to be of the sort of work that you're doing, and of course, as we know, this crazy old virus, it just is everywhere. So inside, outside, as long as they have got control over it, the PCB has got control over it. You'll be sitting at home doing your work. If you're a teacher, often they'll give you the work online. Now, this is not going to be forever, guys, because we're at crisis point with them now. And they're going to have to react to it. And we believe, because there's now the great technology that there is out there, there is breathalyzing, and there's atmospheric testing for this disease, so-called, and they have absolutely no there is no excuse for them not doing that. Now, will the vax continue? Would you have to get a vax if if all of that was available? We would say no. Don't even bother going back there, because the whole place will be open by the time that we've got employers actually standing up to the government and saying we're not going with this. This is ridiculous, because there's so much that can be opened up. All our borders can be opened up. All of the entertainment venues can be opened up. All it requires is that the place is atmospherically tested for the thing, and then as each person comes in the door, including the staff, they get tested, and that's it. If they've got COVID, they don't get in. Fair enough, and they have to go away for a while. But they don't get the sack, right? Right. It's the same as it's your customer coming in the door as well if you're a restaurant owner. Right. When we go to the library, we get breath tested, right? That will be the thing to do. Could be that we're going to actually need it if people start this shedding everywhere. See, this is the other thing. We don't actually want you guys in the workplace, because now with the people who are vaccinated shedding, a lot of people are getting quite ill being around them, unfortunately. Okay, so that's the end of that bit.
It looks like Margaret Coot has a question. So Margaret, if you want to unmute yourself, go for it.
Liz, can you tell me what, my son is an employer. He's not insisting that his employees get vaccinated. So what does he do to protect himself from the government while he's trying to protect his employees?
Well, he can send in a demand to the government and say, he can just say there's a story going around that my employees might actually absent themselves because I've got a dangerous workplace, because now we know, especially from this latest court case, that there definitely is this this deadly pathogen around. And what's the story, government, and what's the story, WorkSafe, about the breathalyzer testing and the atmospheric testing that we know is in this country?
So it's just about asking a question, really, from WorkSafe.
Yes, at WorkSafe and the Ministry of Health, but okay. WorkSafe primarily, because it's supposed to be there. Also, the other people he can speak to are the Department of Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment. They were actually one of the ministries that set up this whole COVID-19 Response Act back in March of last year. They were actually one, or was it April? March, April, I think it was April. Because they were about 10 days, weren't they, about 10 days into it before they actually got an act and the act together, as they say. Yeah. So
he wouldn't send them the letter, though. He would just ask them a question.
It would be better if he sent them a letter, actually, and then he's got evidence of it.
So is that the same letter that you wrote saying that they needed to?
No. Could you explain to him what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then he can do his bit to get the country open, because that's really what we're trying to do, as well as we're trying to protect people from not trying. We are protecting people from getting this vaccination, and we want to open our country up as well, and we want business to thrive again.
Thank you.
Somebody's got an avatar on with Jacinda sitting down there. She's not in the audience, is she?
Does anyone else have a question for Liz? If you do, just unmute yourself, and even just introduce yourself, that would be really nice. Thank you.
Okay, do I just start talking?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Hi, I'm Colleen.
Hi, Colleen.
Hi. Liz, you came and gave a lovely talk at our place. Remember, we're at Rua Resort in Hamilton.
Sorry.
Rua Resort in Hamilton. You came one day.
Hello, Colleen. Yeah,
hello.
lovely to talk to you again.
You too. Clive says to say hello. My situation is a bit unusual. I actually missed the first little bit, so I'm not quite with the play. But I have a mother who turned 96 yesterday. Bless her heart, she's a grubby little thing. I pick up dog poo, cat poo, and human poo as I care for her in a tiny house on my property. She doesn't contribute financially, so for the last 3 months, I've actually become her carer, so that I get it's pennies, but 150 a week to clean up after her and look after her. Of course, I do many more hours than what they pay me for. But anyway, now they're saying I have to have a jab, else I can't take care of her.
Yeah, okay. Now, so what we, yes, this is an interesting one, Colleen, because, and this is, I think, going to be really important for those people who care for their elders at home, or they care for, other people's elders at home, and also for the people who are wanting now to do homeschooling, and also the people who look after other people's children, sort of on a private basis, because they're all caught in this testing regime at the moment, but they are obviously going to then, they're going to be the next one who's pinged and said, right, you're not going to be able to do any of this work unless you bow to our, and kiss our feet here. Right. So because they extend their power over your little house on your property, they become the PCBU, right?
Okay.
So you can say to them, and the letter itself, you could modify it. Let's see, it's a bit of a tricky one, but you could say to them, you could ring them up in the first instance and say, no, maybe you should also ring WorkSafe and say, my situation is that I want to continue looking after this person, but I need to know, I need to be satisfied that there is no COVID in the place and that I'm not taking it into her, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell me where I can get where I can get the breathalyzer and the atmospheric testing?
Okay.
Or would you come every week and do the atmospheric testing for me, and we'll just have the breathalyzer, if you like, whichever. Basically, we're going to start talking to them and educating them, and saying, we know that these things exist. In fact, I've had information that they're actually being manufactured on the North Shore. The government knows this is the case. They're being exported to other countries, and it's being kept under wraps because, of course, the government wants to destroy our economy as well as kill a lot of us, right?
Right.
So, so I think a call to them in the first place. I think then maybe, right, so have they corresponded with you?
Yes, I've been
by email?
called to have I don't remember what they call it, something like an emergency interview on Thursday.
Okay, right. Well, at that emergency interview, you could point out their duties as the PCBU.
Okay.
And you can say, now, what are you going to do? Because everybody I know is wanting this. So you give them a bit of a serve and say, everybody's wanting now to have, Forrest has put something up. Yeah. Oh, yes. Apparently the Herald is now saying it's out there. Well, we've been running this campaign of, breathalyzer testing, etc. And we've got people back since the 14th of October who have been home on leave with full pay in this situation. So obviously the government has heard about this and is now trying to cover their tracks. But so if it's in the Herald, you could even say, I saw it in the Herald, and I actually happen to know it's actually here in New Zealand. So there's no need to wait until January, which is what I heard from my fish and chip shop owner, that they were going to bring it in January. Well, it's that's too late for us, thank you. We're going to have it now, or they can go and they might say to you, okay, we're going to take away the money if you go like that. But I don't think they are, because they do not want the publicity of all of this, right?
Right.
They want to suddenly have discovered it, when it's been actually in the country. I believe they knew back in March at least that the University of Canterbury had it, right? They had the breathalyzer for sure.
Yeah.
So now it's starting to slowly leak out into the mainstream media. Oh, there's this breathalyzer, but we can use. We're ahead of them. We're way ahead of them. So we, because we actually pushed them into that. They wouldn't have come out with that if they hadn't been pushed. See, because it's been hospitals and schools that have heard first. Well, not state hospitals. The people who actually heard it first on the 14th of October were down in Akaroa. I don't know if that lady's on the call tonight, but yeah, we have a good time, by the way, Colin. We have a great time doing this. So it's a great. Right, there's another one from
Forest.
that's been put up.
Okay, so what do I say to them? Sorry.
Well, it would probably be best if I'm going to ask people to leave their email addresses with Forest, and so that you can get a sample COVID-19, a sample Section 83, and then if you're not, if you've got some particular way that you want to change it and everything, possibly be a good idea to get back to the email address and with the question, and then I can get it through there, because I just haven't got time to pick up an email from each person individually. Yeah, so we're trying to funnel it that way.
So I adapt this letter and I present them with it.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, but you see, you're not really withdrawing. You don't want to withdraw your services.
No, and obviously I won't. She's my mother. Won't. But I just think it's just so unfair that they will withdraw the funding.
Yeah.
When it it's just because.
Well, you see, if what you've got now is a strategy, though. You've got a strategy which now you can beat them over the head with, right? So you can do all of the emergency meetings with them and say, well, this is the situation, and you can take the money away if you like, but I'm going to the newspaper with it. I'm going to the Herald. They're talking about the breathalyzer test. I happen to know that it's already here. And you're just fascists or something, whatever they are.
So by having the breathalyzer, to help my old mind understand this, by having the breathalyzer test available, I no longer need the vaccine. Is that the story?
Well, I would say that people will have to refuse the vaccine and say, no, it's quite obvious that there is no need for me to have a vaccine. I'm breathalyzed. I'm not spreading it to anybody. My old mother is breathalyzed as well. She's not spreading it to anybody. So we're the two of us are fine. What you want to do about the rest of the world is fine, but between us, we haven't got it, and we're not sending. Where you can put a breathalyzer test in any public building, government, right? That's what they need to be doing. That not just the public buildings, they need to be supplying businesses with these breathalyzers. I'm going to hopefully get a group of businesses together to take I won't be running it, but I know lawyers, commercial lawyers who would love it, that would take cases against the government for what is industrial espionage is what it is, actually. That's the name of it, the correct name of it. The government has known that these things exist, has let businesses go to the wall deliberately. That's called industrial espionage, right? So that's what the case would be based on. And the damages and the jail terms for that sort of thing. It's the same sort of thing if you know, the enemy within started to blow up factories, and sometimes it'll be a industrial espionage, could be, you know, selling secrets to the enemy, right?
Yeah. And what you say there actually applies very much to me on my other life, which is to run a small hotel, which has gone to the wall. We don't have any guests.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. So in actual fact, you know, I would say to people, once you can get hold of this stuff, go ahead and defy the government and say, no, advertise your business as we will require you to be breath tested. We have done atmospheric testing in our business. It's absolutely fine, and let's see what the government does, because the government has about 120 people, right? Right, and I have my, and the other thing that you will see at there's also a workplaces also include vehicles, right?
Yeah.
So the police cars, for example, they are a workspace. The police station where the policemen and women go, that's a workspace. They could be saying, you know, we don't want the vax. So I mean, who's going to be the enforcers? Every enforcer is now having stuff forced on them. How many more people do you think it'll take before they break? And you know, they're getting the example. The example is coming to them already through the people who have already done taking action on Section 83. So, and that news cannot be kept hidden for much longer. And I believe it's already been. The Herald will not probably know why they've been allowed to put the story out, but because they're manipulated completely as well. They're as dumb as a box of rocks. But yeah, so I believe that we can break this this lockdown with this, and we can all at the same time. Of course, our main thing is to get the stop people getting the jabs. That's kind of first in order priority. But with that comes a whole lot of other excellent gifts.
Okay, thank you. So I give my email address to somebody to get a copy of that letter.
Yeah. If you give that to the host, that would be good.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
He'll put something up there. I know he's great on this administration stuff.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey Liz, what's the email that you want to use for everyone to send their little things to? Because who do we have in charge of the health sector?
Yeah,
You know the name?
hang on a minute. Let me have a look. I have that here somewhere there.
Welcome to anyone who's just joined the call.
Freedom.
I'm just going to type that in the chat
hang on.
bar.
I hadn't assigned it. Oh, I don't think he. Okay, let's try. Oh, I know. I've got one here that I know is assigned. Where was it? Freedom 4. Now that's number 4. Yep. Kiwis.
Yes.
9.
Cool. At Gmail or?
At gmail.com.
Fantastic. And also everyone on this call, we will be having a website launching very soon, where you'll be able to find all these from. Linda, do you have a question?
Yeah, their email is freedom4 all Kiwis.
Oh, thank
at
you.
gmail.com.
Thank you, Linda. I
Thanks, Linda.
forgot you got
Appreciate
that
that.
one. Sorry.
So what was it? Freedom for?
All ALL Kiwis
That's how it should be.
at gmail.com.
Cool. Love that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. See, if I didn't have people helping me with administration, I'd be having emails going everywhere.
Many hands make light work there, Liz. Right. Does anyone else have a question or has anything that they'd like to ask Liz?
I have a question. I'm not showing you my face at the moment, but I'm afraid that the government will change the goalpost with the COVID-19 Health Response Act. Can they do that?
They can have a try, can't they? What all this business about coming and getting people? How many policemen are there out there? This is the thing. We do this work to win. We're not afraid. Okay? You can stay up late all night worrying about it, but I know success.
Yeah.
And I know this is successful.
Awesome.
And they have no comeback. They have no comeback on it. The lawyers have no answers. If there were any legal answers, the lawyers would be back with them straight away. You can bet on it.
Okay.
I'd almost say, Liz, if there were any lawful answers.
I also, can I say something about that? Because I watched a Zoom education thing last week with Voices for Freedom with a workplace, health and safety workplace specialist lawyer, or not a lawyer, but a specialist. And he talked about the mandate being running with the Workplace Health and Safety Act. So it's not that it's better than or worse than, they have to be seen together. That's how it's written about. So you have to consider workplace health and safety. It doesn't get ignored no matter what they put in the mandate. Yeah, but the thing is too that what they're doing is they've got the health and safety, they've got the, what do you call it? They've got the COVID-19 Response Act, and then the order is made under it. Now, the order is only signed by the Governor-General, right? It does not go through Parliament. It does not go through Parliament and get debated. There are no select committees, etc., etc. People making submissions would be making submissions to changes in an order. The Act itself cannot be used, right? It's just the orders under the Act, and they are called subordinate legislation. So the Health and Safety at Work Act definitely trumps it. It doesn't sit alongside that Act. The other thing about it, and for people who are keen on common law, there is no common law apart from, I think you can under the Act. There is no part of common law in the COVID-19 Response Act. It comes off the back of an act called the Pandemic. Is it called the Pandemic Preparedness or Emergency Preparedness Act 2006, which is basically a bunch of administration. It's nothing to do with common law, right? Common law is the basis of all lawfulness, right? The rest is maritime law. Now, there is one part of common law in the Preparedness Act. Sorry, it's not the Preparedness Act, the Response Act, and that is that you can, if somebody's in danger of life and limb or property, you can go in and rescue, right? So if the house is burning down, and it's in a area, say it's a hospital burning down, you can't
you know, say, oh, well, hang on, I have to put my mask on, and, you know, you just get in there, right? Any person. That's pretty much the only part of the Act which is based on common law. Common law trumps this maritime law all of the time. That's why the lawyers haven't come back with anything, because they know that, you know, you cannot.
I think you've covered the microphone with your hand there, Liz, when you change your.
Oh, sorry. The Health and Safety at Work Act, Section 83, is actually an anti-slavery section. You know, I had this lawyer say, "Oh no, it can't be that you can leave work under this act, this section, and, you know, expect to get paid." Well, hello, you can, and, you know, to contend. What I said to him is, to contend otherwise is to contend for slavery. You cannot get workers going into hazardous conditions and expect them not to say, well, I'm leaving it, and I don't expect to be sacked, and I want my pay too, thank you. And all of the cases that apply to other hazardous conditions will prove that. Plenty of them. They get a lot more. There's a lot more of that sort of case law in the American situation, because we've got ACC in this country, it all gets a bit slack. But there is a case that I'm getting some people to research for me, that some of you might remember, back in, it was might be 20 years ago now. I think it was a Christmas Day or a New Year's Day. These guys went down under the road at in Queen Street, I think it was, and one of them asphyxiated. The other guy went down to try and save him, and he died too. Two young men, and there was a big fine levied. I mean, the fines are huge if something happens to you on the job, and the director. But the money is supposed to go to WorkSafe or OSH, right? However, in that case, because there was such bad carelessness and on the part of the PCBU, that a large portion of the fine went to the family that were left. The guys died, right? So this is the sort of what these PCBUs are facing now, because they've extended their control over to the doctor's office. That what happens in the doctor's office is equivalent to what happened on the job, right, at their place where they've got their control. So this is how we're going to bring back we'll bring it back to them, so that they get hit with it, rather than people having to get a piddling amount from ACC. And, you know, ACC, if you've ever been into an ACC court, they just spend their time trying to stop you getting any claim through, especially something if you know, it's a bit hard to make the link, etc. There's quite a lot of ways they get out of it, right? However, with it's a lot more straightforward if people are dying from being vaxxed when they've been forced into it by, or injured by the vax when they've been forced into it, if you like, coerced into it. And that we would be arguing then that they have the PCBU has extended their reach over into the doctor's office. In terms of doctors, they're also and I mean, we are left with Section 83 right now, okay, because there are going to be no exemptions. Doctors are also on that list to be vaccinated. They're not going to be giving exemptions. If exemptions have been given, they've been turned down by employers when they're presented. Now, the big reason you would think to yourself, well, why on earth would, you know, there's going to be no one left to work in these places? The reason is that they're bringing in workers, specialist workers, to take your jobs. Teachers are a good example. Now, apparently teachers know about this, and I've heard about this. I only heard about it for the first time yesterday, and I was just said, what? Right? So there is complete, we are not living in any sort of ordered society anymore. We are in war. We are at war, and we cannot pull our punches, because they are after us in a big way. Not just our jobs and our livelihoods, but our and our lifestyle, but our actual lives. So no pulling punches, guys.
Liz, can I just ask a question on the back of that? So if you were a doctor or a nurse and you continued to work after this mandate was out, and if you're looking at things like, and I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but the Bill of Rights and the Nuremberg Code, or the civil and political rights, all these acts that seem to be in place that seem to supersede what these pirates are putting forward, why are we not just going straight to the jugular and just basically to a degree, ignoring this shit? I know if you're working in a situation where you're working for an employer, they might forcibly make you go, or they're not going to pay you. There's a little bit of a difference there. But if you're your own business, like say for these doctors, what do they have to stand on once it actually gets to a court of law?
Well, here's the thing. Those what you're talking about, the Bill of Rights is contained within, Bill of Rights Act. Yeah. The Nuremberg Code is a code. It's not part of the law of New Zealand or the law of any country. It's it's basically, thou shalt not kill. It's part of the Crimes Act. If you wanted to get to the closest act that we have, it would be the Crimes Act, right?
Yeah.
Harm and tort law contains it all, etc., etc. Why people who have their own businesses and are just not saying to the government, "Well, get lost," is a bit of a puzzle. Because
so the government would struggle to take them to, if it got to a point where it was going to court because the government said this is a mandate and you're not fulfilling that mandate, there is, whether it's common law or other overseeing laws, they would struggle to actually have much grounds to push forward on.
The private business, they have property, don't you? Who pays the rent on your private business? Who pays the wages of your workers? Who owns the business? You own it, right? Where does the government come in? We're not nationalised, as far as I know. In communist countries, nobody owns their business. That's why when you do business with any company from China, you're doing business with the party. You're doing business with the CCP, right? Now, that's why, it used to be that people understood these things about nationalisation. And when they talk about banks, right? They nationalised the bank, or they nationalised, and it's a typical socialist thing to do. But once you do that, you've got a whole lot of control, right? You also spend a whole lot of the taxpayers' money on propping up inefficient stuff anyway, but we won't go into a political, analysis on that. However, in terms of why are people who are not part of the mandates, which is the ports, port workers, people going to and from, these places, the medical people and the education sector, right? Anybody who's linked to the Ministry of Health, or they pay the wages or something, they appear to be able to be forced, and so this is why we're fighting back with the worker themselves. Basically, the worker themselves then takes control of the situation and says, no, you don't, you have to fix the workplace to make it safe for me. However, people who are not part, who might be in the medical field, say doctors who rent places off somebody or whatever, or they have their own surgery and that, absolutely no reason. There's no way that they can be mandated to be doing anything. It's their business. You know, this is the thing. You've got to remember that we're talking about the workplace here as well, right? What are they going to do? Are they going to take your, confiscate your property? Are they going to confiscate your building? All right.
So it's only if you're subsidised by the government. That's where well, I call it the government, but the cartel. Yeah. That's when they've got you by the balls. Other than that, you can tell them to go and themselves, kind of to a degree. Yeah, they can't drag you into court and say, right, I told you that you had to have a vaccine and you don't, and you're still practicing business. Yeah,
absolutely. They cannot do that. In fact, they've tried very, very hard, and they're still saying it's not mandatory. Okay, they're still saying it. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to use you as a shield, because when you talk about the Nuremberg Code, etc., they then, if Jacinda was to come down personally, or to send her goon down to grab you and vaccinate you, right? Or to do anything. I mean, even to make you shut your doors of your business, right? That is actually, to cause economic disaster to you. To do it directly is actually, illegal. This whole thing of closing roads, etc., it's all in the way. Well, roads is one, a sort of a public space, but this thing of closing private shops is wrong. Is absolutely, it won't stand up in court in the end. If people would open their shops and open their businesses and say, well, so sue me. Yeah. But
Liz, can I ask a question?
Yep.
What about somebody who is an acupuncturist? He has his own business. He works from home. 90% of his work is from ACC.
Right. 90% of his work is from ACC. Right. Then he's in a sort of same situation as the person who spoke about, the lady, Colleen, who spoke about, her situation with her mother. That is what I'd be saying to that person, right? Get hold of ACC or whoever is saying, if ACC is saying it, or the Ministry of Health, get hold of WorkSafe, get hold of the Ministry of Health, and start making a noise about the breathalyzer testing and the atmospheric testing. In the meantime, how are they tracking it, Josie? How are they tracking the fact that there is or is not a
that he's not vaccinated? I have no idea, but they've told him he has to be vaccinated to work. Yeah.
Right. I think there's going to get to be a stage where people are just going to have to, because they're paying the bill for the actual
client,
aren't they? Yeah. It's the same with this thing of them offering 40 hours, free childcare, right? That people, childcare operators yeah, they're up against it too, in that, you know, that's their business. That's going to be affected. And so the closer you're tied into the state, you can see where the actual reins lie, don't you? You can see now that it looks like a very nice thing for the state to help you out and encourage blah blah blah. But what they're always doing is looking for an opportunity to make you dependent and get you But yeah, we're looking for practical situations. I believe that that, you know, the workers are actually going to lead the way on this. Individual workers, I'm not talking about groups of workers, they're pretty hard to organise. And also, if one or two of them drop out, then it completely destroys the whole action. So, you know, I'm not so much for the work groups. I'm for the individual doing it under Section 83.
What can he do? What can he do?
Well, see, the thing is, if we get, they're going to come up against a brick wall on the 15th. If we can get enough publicity out about what we're doing and what people are doing, then in actual fact, the government will have to make a lot of changes. See, if they start to bring in breathalyzing and atmospheric testing, there is no logical reason then for them to be pushing vaccinations, is there? Because people, as I was saying before, and people must wake up at that stage and say, well, you know, well, even there's a great case for your acupuncturist to say, well, you know, I don't have to get vaccinated. I've breathalyzed. I'm being breathalyzed, and my place has been atmospherically tested.
Yeah.
Everybody who comes in is going to be tested. Blah, finished.
Yeah, and who has to buy that equipment?
You can't be worrying, as I was saying before. You know, if you're in a war, you don't not do stuff because it might not work, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you might as well give up at the beginning.
Yeah.
And no war is the one that way.
No. Okay, so
we've got to preserve our country and our freedom for the sake of those who died for it already.
Yeah, so does he need to purchase the breathalyzer and the atmospheric tester himself because he's the PCBU?
Well, one would think so. However, as I say, I'm going to try and get enough, if we can get enough business owners together and work out a case to take against, you know, get a law firm to take a class action of business owners against the WorkSafe and the government. Because those sorts of things are taken as groups, they're not taken individually. Right, because you're talking, it's like even though you're the business owner, it's actually your business name that you're using. So you're using basically legal fictions against legal fictions. So, yeah, but I believe that could be, you know, we could get a pretty big case going. And it's only for a little while that people might be deprived of work. You know, it's not going to be forever. I see this ending before Christmas.
Okay. And the other thing, because I'm not going to go into work on Friday, they need to be paying me, don't they?
They do, yeah.
And how do I bring that up?
Well, you'll be looking at your do you have an app that tells you what the hours they're putting in?
Well, I know what I was scheduled for. I know how many hours I was scheduled for and how many days.
Yeah. Well, you might remind them that, of course, you're off because there's a hazardous work conditions, and that you need to be paid. If they make any move to not pay you, or to say, okay, well, we'll take it out of your annual leave or something like that, or and then in actual fact, there's a personal grievance to be raised, and you know that may actually bring them to a halt on that.
So what I would do is I would put my timesheet in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, of course. You generate your timesheet from your end. Okay. Yeah. That's the way.
So I might want to share with my boss and say, you will be receiving a timesheet for the scheduled days that I was scheduled, starting on Friday, ending on Wednesday, because of the hazardous workplace that I was unable to work in.
Yeah, that's right. So you're still working. They can't sack you, and so if you're, you know, it's like you would do alternative work if they had alternative work for you to do, but obviously they haven't. So I would also advise them to quickly investigate how to get these things and to ring up work.
How to get
I mean, if all of the employers started ringing up WorkSafe, would be a good idea.
So they need to purchase from WorkSafe the atmospheric and breathalyzer.
No, WorkSafe doesn't sell them. It's some other companies in this country that have got them.
So who do I suggest that she contacts?
Well, you know, they should do something themselves, right? They're the PCBU, not you, right?
Oh, so Oranga Tamariki are the PCBU?
Yeah.
Liz, why doesn't she just add
Why
those links? Why don't you just add the links to the email? And then it's like, well, here you go. There's your proof that they exist, the atmospheric testing and the breath testing, and then...
Oh, good. Where do I get them from?
Your friend Google. Google breath test virus, atmospheric test virus. It comes up really easy. I've even put the links in the chat bar, so you can actually go and copy paste those if you want.
Awesome.
Anyone can. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Thank you.
You're welcome, Josie. I have a question, Liz. Hello, can you hear me? Somebody's very quiet.
Yeah, just if anyone else has a question, just unmute yourself and you can ask your question. But Liz, someone has written a question in the chat bar. It says vaccine card number 3 weeks ago. So those without them were known, the numbers were known, the hires for next year are for the projected numbers. Maybe that person wants to ask this question to Liz. If you want to ask this question, I think that's...
Really, we're not. This isn't kind of a medical thing.
No.
I'm an employment lawyer. I'm interested in workplaces and I'm interested in jobs. We all know that, you know, we're not going to get into all of the reports about, you know, who's dead and who's not.
Good call. Yeah, no, we're not here for that. We're here to help try and you guys get the information you need to keep your jobs and fight back and force the government to bring in this new testing system, so then we all get that normal life back that we all used to have, instead of the crappy deal they're trying to sell us, which is a jab and get all your normal life back. Who negotiated this stuff? Obviously not someone for humanity. But if anyone has any questions for Liz, we would love to hear them. And I reckon we wrap up at 8:30, Liz. How's that sound to you? Yep. So we've got 5 more minutes. So if anyone wants to ask any questions, you're welcome to ask a question.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. Joanne, can you hear me, Liz?
Yeah, I can hear you, Joanne. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So my son is working from home. He's been sent home. He's worked from home throughout all the lockdowns. And now his employer is saying they are in the process of mandating.
Mm-hmm.
So, when would and if he can he even use an 83 when they're working from home?
Yes. Well, he could use the 83. He could say he could actually look at the Act himself and find it's under Section 83 on the alternative work subsection, I think it's subsection 4, and he could quote to them and say, well, you know, I'm working from home, I'll continue to work from home until you've got, you know, your ducks in a row. Don't try and talk them out of mandating. They should see sense, right? If they're thinking, oh well, you know, we're going to have to get rid of certain people because, you know, they haven't got vaccinated. But any business owner surely would see sense and think, oh, hang on, you know, this would be a lot easier. You know, I could open up, you know, I could prove my place was free of it all of the time, you know. I could be, you know, business owners should be thinking, if any of them are listening, I could be ahead of the game. I could be the best business in town doing this from the point of view of being a PCBU and taking up the new technology. And as I say, I think that even if they have to go and buy it themselves in the first place, then in actual fact they can join a class action against the WorkSafe and the government and expose them as well, because it's all going to be part of the mopping up operation after we beat these so-and-sos.
So at this stage, waiting for Carter's to open up, what does he do? Does he just sit and work from home? And they've given him another week.
I think he should send in the Section 83 and say, you know, I'm working from home and it looks like I'll have to continue to work from home because you've got a hazardous workplace.
Okay.
I mean, she's talking about on the TV all of the time about more and more cases, and she's not really making any sense about, you know, if you've got more and more cases, why do you open up? Well, because everybody wants to go somewhere for Christmas seems to be the answer. You know, she hasn't got any answers anymore.
So if all office staff and all the staff in the building are vaccinated, because and they're admitting that they can shed and they can spread and they can catch, are they then the hazard? The vaccinated
they
people?
are, and they are actually, and because the breathalyzer testing will come in for everybody, okay. So people in the place need to be. We could start. I mean, he could, if he could try that too. He could say, yeah, and I'm not coming in because you've got 3 hazards, right? You've got the COVID, you've got the shedding, and you've got the and you continue to talk about the jab, which means that, you know, you then become, you know, that's the other hazard, right? Now the jab one might be the one that tips the employer mostly because of the huge fines that we would argue should be allocated to the victims.
So
because of such egregious behaviour by WorkSafe and not telling people about the alternative ways to stop this whole shutdown of the economy.
So not to take over, but this may help. Someone else might be on the same lines. My son had a serious traumatic head injury 10 years ago. He had blood clotting and bleeding in the brain. So he's talked to a second doctor who has said, yeah, you shouldn't get it and I'll give you an exemption for it.
Right.
And so my son thinks, okay, well, I'll use that. I'm thinking, well, that's not going to be much use. It doesn't sound like it will be.
Well,
should he use it? And when should you? Should you wait until they give you that call, the final call, or should you start the process before they give you the final call? D-Day, so to speak.
I would start it before, because it's not only the fact of the exemption. Now the private industry, I've lost it again. The private industry employer actually they're bringing in their own mandate, if you'd say. So the government isn't mandating it because they haven't got control of that business. Well, on the surface they haven't, right? But they'll probably be controlling them through contracts, I'd say. You know, do you get the contract for the wood for this or that, or the building supplies for this or that government building? So it's all tied together about why, and that's possibly why employers are being so obtuse. But you know, what order he does this in, he'll have to have a think about it with the information. I mean, he's not on the call tonight to hear what we're talking about.
No, he's not. No, I'm
Okay.
going to get the recording if I can and go over it again with him.
Yeah. So it's a kind of his own call, really. I don't like the idea of going into a building with all of those vexed people. I mean, the women are suffering terrible reproductive problems. Who's to say the men aren't as well? You know, it seems like, unfortunately, vaccinated people might be quite a health hazard to the rest of us.
So should people start with the mental health stress like Chris Lint?
No. Well, he's not talking about mental health stress. He says he's not, because he says he doesn't want to. He doesn't want people to be said to be, oh, well, we can't employ you because you're a loose cannon or something, right? Well, in actual fact, that is covered by the Human Rights Act. Even if somebody's got a mental illness, you can't, and both by the both by the Human Rights Act as a form of discrimination, and also in the Employment Contracts Act, Employment Relations Act itself, you are not, that is also a prohibited form of discrimination. So yeah, you can do it, but I mean, you go to the doctor then and they want to give you some really crazy stuff, which is probably worse than having anything, you know, having a bad cold or COVID or whatever, right? So you can go to the doctor and say, listen, I've got physical problems, right? I can't sleep, I can't eat, I've got a stomach ache, I think I'm getting an ulcer if I'm getting hassled in the workplace. You know, you better investigate the shedding as well, because it could be that. You know, I wouldn't go too far off the wall with doctors, really. But, you know, there's plenty of stuff that and the people that I've said go on stress leave, no problem. Okay?
Can I just say something? Liz, I don't know if I told you this personally, but shedding's real. It's absolutely real. I ended up with, back mid-May, off work for 8 weeks with pericarditis. And the cardiologists, they couldn't understand it because all my bloods, everything was bog standard normal, but I had pericarditis. So it's absolutely real, because most of the people where I'd worked by that point, mid-May, had been double jabbed. So I just want to highlight it for you. It's absolutely true.
Is pericarditis a kind of a mechanical thing rather than a disease? Is it? It's kind of like you're mechanical in the sense that you know, your pericardium is swollen by a
it's an inflammation of the sac that holds the heart.
So your blood would show that you're fine, but your actual pump is faulty.
Well, yeah, I just felt like I had a watermelon in my chest. And that
lasted. But I mean, the reason that your bloods would be fine is because it's kind of like a mechanical. We shouldn't really get into all of this stuff because we're trying to keep.
No, but I just wanted to highlight it's legit.
Yeah. So, but you know, you know what doctors are like, and I think in terms of, there's plenty of ordinary stuff that you can say, yeah, I'm just really, really stressed. I can't sleep and I need time off. And I say use that as a reason to get out now, and then use your.
You're mute again, Liz.
Sorry, Liz.
So use your stress leave to take a bit of time out, think about it, stay away from the shedders, and put in your Section 83 before, if you're in one of the jobs that is what you call is coming up on the 15th, or like somebody said before, they've got a public holiday on the 12th. Get it on the 11th in that case. If it's if the other rest of you, as long as you get in, probably the 12th is the latest. Put them in pain over the weekend, and then you're well in on time, making sure that they can't sack you on the 15th.
Hey, Liz, so should we make that the last one?
Yeah,
And-
unless somebody's got something really.
Yeah, I know of a business in Eltham who are being bullied by the government to get their vaccines, but they're happy to work with each other and they don't know what.
Right, they're private company, Linda. Yep. Okay, those people need to be starting to get a lawyer. If you can pass on the message to them, there are these things. There are these ways of detecting and detecting the so-called disease, and clean bill of health. They should be suing, getting ready to class action with other people, other employers, other businesses, to sue WorkSafe and the government for business closure. All of that business closure should be compensated. Is that it?
I don't think the business is actually shut down,
Right.
but they're just wondering what they should do.
Well, that's what I'm saying they should do. Whether they're shut, no, they've been shut down though, haven't they? They haven't operated all through all of the lockdowns, have they?
They're in Eltham, so yes, they have.
Have they operated all through the lockdowns or not?
No, yes. No, they aren't they're farmlands, and so I'm not sure whether they did or not actually.
Yeah,
yes, they did to an extent.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, still, I mean, if there's there must have been a reduction, I would have thought, because I mean their customers had a lot less money to spend, perhaps, I don't know, but I mean if they wanted to, that would, if I was a business owner and I found out that all of this carry on had been going on, I would be looking for other, or if you got enough money, I mean Farmlands has got enough money to employ a lawyer to do it on their own. Don't even need a class action, but I mean somebody will kick it off.
It's just that one particular Farmlands branch, I don't know what's happening with the rest of them.
Well, those are usually franchises, I think. This is the thing, we are in a new world. I mean, if I were their lawyer, I'd be saying, well, there'll be things in the franchise that they say, you've got to do all of this way, but they don't say, it doesn't say you can't sue on your own behalf if you've suffered some loss. As far as franchise arrangements go, I believe that they could do it on their own. But yeah, that's I'm not a business lawyer, but that's my feeling about it.
So do you think the Section 83, if they all put them in, would help them or not?
Yeah, it would actually, because if the workers all put them in, and and they went to the boss and said, yeah, we know that you don't want this, and this is the way to help you. Then the boss can turn to WorkSafe and have a go at them straight away about where's the stuff. We need it right now. A big branch like big company like Farmland's a big that'd be a really good one. Be great if they we need to all work together. It's the estate that's the enemy here. It's not the employers or the even though sometimes they might seem it. It's what we're trying to get at is the state, which is committing industrial espionage on this country and on the businesses, and on and for us, it's trying to kill us.
Right.
Excellent. Should we wrap that up, Liz? What do you reckon?
Yep, that sounds good. If people wanted to get in touch with that email and say, if they've got lots of other people, we can arrange another one another night. Yep.
Yeah, we'll look at doing that probably for the different industries, Liz?
Yeah,
this was one more focus for nurses. We can do one for salespeople and so on and so forth until this just spreads like viral. That's what our goal is.
Yeah.
Now,
and if anybody knows any business owners, please, love to hear from them.
Yeah, we definitely will have one for business owners as well, because like Liz said, we want to do this is to get the business owners to get at the state. This is go through the business owners to get at the state and force them to bring in the other testing so we can go, we don't want what you've got. We're safe. Leave us alone. We'll do our thing and live our lives. Get rid of it all. So, hey Liz, so we'll just get that video edited and we might as well just put it in that everyone who emails that email that's in the chat bar, then we can just send it out to them, but we are going to post this online and then this can just be shared everywhere. That's our goal. So it'll be edited and then set up, and then we'll have all your emails so we'll be able to get in touch with you. But thanks everyone for your time and your patience and all your awesome questions. And it's time to get more passionate, get more inspired, and change the fear vibe and turn it into empowerment. And let's lead this forward and action. Thanks very much.